Warning. This will...
Hi, welcome back to another chapter today with Ms. Martino, the Executive Director of NAMI in Palm Beach down here in South Florida. And we're going to go into the next phase, the question. After you didn't watch chapter 1, where she discussed a little bit background of what NAMI is, gave some other coping skills that was great that I didn't really have anticipated. And we're going to start off with, I have a family dynamic question. So this could be like twofold. So one question I have is that if the person is an alcoholic or suffers from another mental health disease and is in denial, but you could see all the signs and they're a grown adult, they're 25, 20 or up, or whatever you consider an adult as, and no matter how much you want to help them, they're just in refusal and you have no control because they're an adult. What do you would tell the family member that it's just killing them and breaking their heart because they want to see their child, that could be 40, could be like me, 50 years old. My parents are still alive. Get help. What does that come across your desk?
Very much so. We talk to the family to get a little more information about what's going on. Often a family will call us and they'll say, my child, my son or daughter is in denial. They're not showering, they're staying in bed, their room is a mess, they're a mess, they smell, they're not eating, they don't like any of the food, they think things taste bad, and they need help, and they're in denial that something's wrong. And one of the first things I'd ask is try to get to questions about whether that person might be having psychosis. Are they having any hallucinations? Or are they hearing things?
Can you explain psychosis for the public?
Psychosis, so the person is seeing or hearing something that's not there. And sometimes it's delusions, like common ones. And I find it interesting that the delusions tend to be common, but the person might think they have a chip in their head. They might think that someone's listening in on their phone. They might think that a white van is following them everywhere they go. They might think that people are talking about them behind their back, or that there is some kind of conspiracy going on. A lot of conspiracy stuff, distrust in the government, distrust in people in authority. But I mean to the point where they really think there's like a plot against them. They might think the television is talking to them or they're getting messages. So if I hear that kind of talk, that kind of thinking that's going on with a person, that they're having psychosis, then it's very common with psychosis that there is something called anosognosia. I think it's ANASOGNOSIA, anosognosia. And that is part of the brain disorder. It's a lack of awareness. The person doesn't understand they're sick. They think that the stuff is real. If you started hearing a voice, your first thought wouldn't be, geez, I must have schizophrenia. Your first thought would be, oh my gosh, where's that coming from? And someone's talking to me. So the person does not believe that they're sick, and they don't want to go to a doctor and they don't want to take meds. As a matter of fact, the problem is everyone else who is doing whatever. They don't see themselves as being the person who has the problem, but that is actually a brain issue. It's part of the disorder. So you're not going to talk someone out of that. You're not going to convince them that they're sick if they don't believe that. And so those kinds of situations are harder to deal with. Sometimes the mobile response team can come and convince the person to go get help for perhaps a symptom. It's not uncommon that someone with those kinds of, with psychosis or delusions, they're not sleeping. They may be up for days at a time. They might feel exhausted. They might not be able to keep a job. There may be things in their life that they're willing to get help for. So if you can kind of go at it in that direction, that helps sometimes. It's not a short-term solution though. And it is not infrequently that those are the cases that someone ends up with an involuntary hospitalization, because to treat that psychosis, the standard treatment is antipsychotic medication. So, and talking someone into taking antipsychotic medication if they don't believe they're sick it's pretty difficult. There are injectables that last like a month, but the person has to agree to that. In our country, it's hard for families to hear this, but in our country, we don't force people to take medication. So if someone is hallucinating, I mean, I get calls from families that their loved one was on medication, they were stable, they were doing really well, they were working or they were in school, and they decided they didn't need those meds anymore, so they stopped them. And now this person was psychotic, they were, totally non-functional, and the family, and I understand where they're coming from. They're like, how can I make them take this? Can I get guardianship? Can I force them to take it? Because their life would be so much better. And I understand where they're coming from, but our country doesn't do that. We don't force people to take meds, even if it's in their best interest. So it is a process in that kind of situation.
Well, as a patient, I mean, I could tell my situation is like, when they put me, after I was diagnosed, and unless there's going to be a cure in my lifetime, I was looking at a pretty sad situation. And so they put me on opiates, and I was on opiates, benzos, everything to calm me down and treat the symptoms. But the pain management doctor didn't tell it. It also, it didn't cure. It helped me really
help the
symptoms, emotional and physical. And it was instantaneous.
Yeah.
Where the other, I went with a psychiatrist and tried some mood stabilizers like Lexapro or something like that, you wouldn't know if I was feeling better or not, because it doesn't give you that instant gratification.
Yeah.
And I think that's a frustrating part. And unfortunately, I think you have to cross over to that terrible place of almost being dependent to be able to understand. And we don't want our neighbors, friends, and loved ones to have to go through that then disease on top of the mental illness we're trying to self-medicate.
Yeah.
So that's a very challenging
Yeah,
thing.
some of the medications can be really very
And
difficult.
the side effects, like you might take it and it might work great for you. Tell your neighbor, oh, I'm on this, it's changing my life. And then they have a bad experience. So that's why it's so important to get the right doctor, right?
Right.
And the right fit for yourself,
right.
and self-examination.
And, and there are people who are, opposed to any medication. I mean, I certainly, benzodiazepines and opiates are two that are very addictive, and they do treat symptoms more so than, more than getting to the root cause. But an antipsychotic does more get to the root cause of what's causing the psychosis. It's not for every disorder, but that does help when people have schizophrenia or a disease with psychotic features. But there's not a quick fix. It's finding the right medication at the right dose. And we try to teach this to family members. We have classes for family members. It's called Family to Family. It's 8 classes, and it teaches family members how to live and work best with their family member who has mental illness. And that lots of times families are like, oh, if they would just take their meds, everything would be fine. And we really try to help them understand that it's a trade-off. Any med is a trade-off. Any med is going to have some side effect that may or may not be an issue for you. But, the antipsychotics, they kind of slow down thought process. Is it worth it to have your thought processes slowed down a little bit to be able to function in the world? That may be okay. And other people may say, I lose who I am when that happens. So, we say that it's a heroic decision for someone to choose to take meds for the rest of their life. It's really a tough decision. It's not so cut and dry. They have physical issues that come, with the antipsychotics. You will see typically at least a 25-pound weight gain. You see, like I said, slowing of thoughts. There are just a lot of things but
Again, with them, that we want to let the audience know there's also some great stuff that happens out of it
yes,
too.
right. But without it, like I've had people with bipolar disorder say, I have to take a medication that affects me 24/7 for something that might, if you have bipolar disorder untreated, you might be severely manic or severely depressed a month or 2 months or 3 months out of a year. And they're like, and I have to take something that affects me 24/7 that might happen a month or two of the year. That month or two can ruin your life. You can be incarcerated. You could spend all of your life savings. You could ruin every relationship you've had. I mean, that month, and if you're depressed, you could be suicidal. So that month can ruin your life. But yes, it is a heroic decision to really have that insight and that thought process and that decision making to take medication that's going to, you have to weigh the risks and the benefits. But typically the benefits outweigh the risks if it's a serious mental illness.
Now, we discussed on this, like a situation like that, you're trying to get your friend or loved one there, the battle, the challenges. It works out or it doesn't work out. What do the parents or the loved one or the friend do if it doesn't work out in their favor? What type of self-care should they take? I mean, after a while, you have to say, listen, I did everything I can, but I'm not in that position, so I can't relate to that. But I'm sure you've had a lot of people come across with you.
Absolutely. And we have NAMI has our NAMI has a family support group every Wednesday night. And if someone wants to find out about that and sign up, it's namipbc.org. It's called Family Support Group. But most NAMIs around the country, if someone Googles their local NAMI, they could find a family support group. And that's family members who are in all different phases of struggle. Their loved one may be right now medication compliant. Their loved one right now might be refusing to get out of bed. They may be punching holes in the wall. I mean, we have all different stages, but there's such an understanding of what the family members are going through. And I had mentioned this to you earlier. I teach the family to family class that's once a week for 8 weeks. We usually have 20 or 25 people in that class. And I always ask in that class, how many of you have not told your own brothers and sisters that you have an adult child living with mental illness? And there are always like 5 or 6 people in that class who raise their hand. And I think, how isolating is that? This is one of the most, as a parent, this is one of the most difficult things you'll ever face in your life. And yet you're alone. It ruins marriages if you can't get on the same page. And yet, you're not talking to your brothers or sisters, your own parents about it. There's such shame and stigma around mental illness. People feel like I did something wrong as a parent and I made my kid mentally ill, or, there's just so much wrong information and stigma out there that people hide it. They stop getting invited over for holiday meals. They stay home because they don't want to be embarrassed by the behavior of their loved one, and they don't want to leave them alone, so they stay home. I mean, the families become very isolated, just like that individual.
So your group or you would refer them to somebody, or they could actually come to your group?
They come to the group. The group talks about that. It's funny, often part of the group is first everyone goes 2 minutes around kind of, where am I this week? And then we have discussion. And so many times people in that group will say, I have been so out straight dealing with my family member all week. This is the one thing I do for myself. I don't miss this group. This is the one thing that is for me. So they are with people who understand them. We can't necessarily fix it. We can try to share resources, but you're with people who understand what you're going through, and that's huge.
Okay. In closing, can you tell everybody, because I'm sure you'll be going to be getting a lot of contacts since we're being broadcasted around the country and even in British Columbia. I don't think you're in British Columbia, right? Yeah.
I know that there's NAMI in other countries, but I don't exactly know which ones, so sorry. But we
Okay.
do have a national organization, and they do take calls. If someone calls there for help, they probably would direct them to their local NAMI. But the national number is 800-950-6264. So that's the national helpline. The website for national is NAMI, NAMI, NAMI.org. And then there's a 24/7 text line. So you can text that any time of the day or night and get some help, some information, some direction. And that's 741-741. That's the text.
And if someone was on, well, for example, in our backyard, Palm Beach, they reach out to you, is it open Monday through Friday, 9 to
We're
5?
Monday through Friday. We're not an emergency organization, but we do certainly, most of our calls are people in crisis. But yeah, Monday through Friday, we're 8:30 to 5. And
Will you get a
our
live operator or do you have to leave a message?
yeah, we have a receptionist, and if the family support specialist isn't already on the phone, that call will be transferred right to the family support specialist. If she's on the phone, they put it in her voicemail and then she calls back before she leaves for the day. But our number is 561-588-3477. That's our number for our NAMI.
All right, so that's the number for Palm Beach Gardens.
Beach
And
County.
then it is the same protocol that you just said, 9 to 5. Is that usually nationwide or is each state work at a different level?
Some NAMIs are volunteer organizations. They're not, you leave a number and a volunteer calls you back. So, and some have 25 staff. It really varies a lot. So
Now,
I mean,
since
we're
you are-
fortunate that we have an office and we have staff. Not every NAMI has that.
Now, since you are a non-for-profit like us, I always say, we got to spread the wealth because the overhead and everything comes in, and you're doing such a great thing by really helping people out. And I still don't understand why people just don't look at it as a disease like cancer or anything else. We have a stigma. We're so afraid of these things, but it's so important that we have resources like NAMI that's out there. So if somebody would like to make a contribution or something like that, how would they do it?
They would go to our website, namipbc.org, and there's a donate here button at the bottom.
Now, if they wanted to say that the Palm Beach Gardens, they wanted to help the one that was in their backyard, is it get specifically allocated can they request an allocation to the NAMI that helped them the most? Not that that's the big difference, but somebody might look at that.
Well, that one, namipbc.org, just gets used, that money gets used in Palm Beach County. So
okay.
So, if you call a different NAMI, their money would go to them. We don't pay like dues to our national organization. Our national organization helps to support us a little bit financially, but more with, they help with our fundraisers, with our design for things, that kind of thing. They're very supportive. They develop all of our programs, all of our training, all of our protocols. It all comes from national. We have an amazing national organization. They're very, very helpful and supportive.
Outrageous. I should have incorporated this question earlier. When you refer them out to a psychologist, a specialist, somebody that you think would be a good fit for the patient or the family, how do you vet them? How do you make sure? So I know I'm, getting the right care.
Well, we certainly don't know every provider in the county. We do start with, if the person has insurance, we will help them to find somebody who takes their insurance. We'll talk to them about what kind of provider they want. Do they want someone who prescribes medications? Do they want someone who's going to do testing and a diagnosis? Do they want someone who will do talk therapy or family therapy or marriage therapy? So we try to kind of help them think through what they're looking for, and then have them think of some questions that they could ask. Come up with a handful of people who might meet that criteria, and then really try to instruct people to be good consumers. Don't just call and make an appointment. Call and talk to this person. And I always say, if you're not clicking with them, if you don't feel that they are understanding you and that you're going to respect their opinion, go to somebody else. You can't like everyone. Everyone doesn't have the same values, doesn't have the same, whatever background. So find someone you click with, you'll respect their opinion, and who has the right kind of training for what you're looking for. So we kind of help people narrow those things down. If someone has no insurance at all, then we do have some, small, but a list of providers who will provide some pro bono services. So that might be more specific. We'll try to match someone with someone who would provide free services to them.
And we're working on, and we'll be reaching out to you soon. We're working on fundraisings for grants for people that are in that position, so we can get back to the communities around us. And
we do a lot of grant writing.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Marsha, for spending the time. I know you have a very busy schedule. We ask all of our audience members, again, feel free to reach out to NAMI and ask any questions, because if you don't ask for help, you can't get it. And please hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, and share and like this episode, because that's what helps us grow and get the word out. And I believe that there's strength in numbers. And if we could get everybody to start being proactive, spreading the word, taking guilt off of people and really sharing it, I think that'll be a first way to get off to a good start and start off with 2021. Hopefully it'll be a little bit better than 2020 and stay in the game. Thank you very much.
Early. Don't wait till you're in crisis.
Right. Have a great weekend. Take care.
Thank you for watching Paolo's podcast. This concludes Chapter 2 with Marsha Martino. Tune in next week, February 17th, for our next podcast. As of 2021, CPMHA has launched a new charity GoFundMe, and we strongly encourage all viewers to consider donating. Please consider helping us reach our campaign goals, as all proceeds go towards funding our company and into forming our programs and operations to give those in need access to free resources for coping skills and connections to get them through this national health crisis. The charity GoFundMe link will be posted in the description of all future streaming platform videos. Thank you, and don't forget to check out our company website, cpmha.com. And remember to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell in order to receive notifications each time we post a new podcast.